Hello, this is Bob. In this first tutorial, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of Baselight for Final Cut Pro. So what can you do with Baselight for Final Cut Pro? Well, Baselight provides a very powerful yet easy to use set of color grading tools. It also gives you several image processing filters to add effects, things like soften, glows, mist, and so on, which can be added to your shots as part of the grading process. Baselight is applied to the shots in your timeline as an effects filter. Simply drag and drop the filter onto your shots. You can either work with the Baselight UI in the viewer window, or you can pop it out into a full screen UI. You can also use the artist color grading panel, which makes it really easy to adjust things. Within Baselight, we build up layers to apply color correction and effects until we get the look we're after. In this music video, for example, on this shot we've got 6 layers. I've named them all here to remind me what they do. As I step through each layer, you can see the effect that each one has on the input image. Each layer is applied to the result of the layer before it. As we're working on each individual layer, we can either choose to view the output of just that layer, or the final output showing all of the layers together. Each layer can be used to apply an overall grade or filter to the whole image, or it can be used with a matte to isolate specific areas of the image so that we can grade separately inside and outside of the matte. Mattes can be made using a combination of Bezier shapes and keys. On these last 3 layers here, for example, you can see that there are mattes being used to separate out specific parts of the image. In this layer we've got a matte that was created by a key selecting just the highlights in the face. This allows us to apply a grade to enhance just the highlights. These 2 rows of buttons here allow us to choose the grades and effects that we want to apply both inside and also outside of the matte if we want to. We can also add additional grades and effects to this list. And we can use any number of them we like in any layer. If the particular layer doesn't have a matte, then the grades and effects will be applied to the overall image. And of course you'll be able to learn how to use all these different types of grades and effects in other tutorials. The Baselight user interface is divided into 4 main areas. There's the image, of course. Below the image is a histogram, and we can choose to fill the curves in the histogram if we want to. In the middle of the screen are the 2 rows of buttons that I mentioned earlier, which allow you to choose the grades and filter effects that you want to apply. And then on the left hand side, this area here contains the controls for the grades and effects that you've got selected in these 2 columns here. At the top of the screen here, this is the name of the current layer. Next to it, a bypass button to allow you to turn it on and off. And then these 2 buttons here select whether you're adjusting the grade or the matte for this layer. And then finally at the bottom of the screen we have a keyframe bar which will show you where changes to dynamic effects are going to take place. Once you've finished working on a shot, you can pop back down the user interface and then play through it on the timeline. Of course, the playback performance will depend on how many layers you've used and how many other effects you're applying at the same time. If we've got similar shots in our timeline, we can apply the effect to multiple shots by adding it as a favorite and then simply dragging that onto other shots in the timeline. And once we've finished doing all the Baselight grading in Final Cut Pro, we can then render the finished job out of Final Cut Pro, or we can export it as an XML to continue the grading in a full Baselight suite. Everything we do in Baselight for Final Cut Pro will carry across into the main Baselight system. The colorist can then continue to do a master grade on the job, adding additional layers and also using tools and effects that are not available in Baselight for Final Cut Pro. And once all the grading is finished in the Baselight suite, the final job can either be rendered out of Baselight or it can be returned back to Final Cut Pro for further editing or for the final online. In the next tutorial, I'll show you how to use Baselight for Final Cut Pro to apply basic grades and effects to your shots.